might have recall a news story from last year. There was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California, and the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet I'm wondering now, if your house is burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters are?
You can respond, and then
listen. I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is black women.
In today's video, Jasmine Crockett absolutely unleashes on Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip. Scott Jennings tries to spin everything from California wildfires to US foreign policy into a partisan blame game. But Jasmine Crockett keeps dragging the conversation back to reality, because the truth is no amount of finger pointing at DEI hires or woke policies explains why California's wildfire seasons have exploded. The science does. So let's dive in and watch how Jasmine Crockett shuts down Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
So let me be clear. Because you are a woman, or because I know that some of the right has been sharing these photos of the fact that I believe that the fire chief may be a woman or something, that has nothing to do with it. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be qualified. And the fact that we want to, at a time when people are dying, decide that a country of immigrants is failing or people are dying because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House, and I can promise you it was my ancestors that built the White House. So listen, if we have been good enough to build this country, we are good enough to serve and die overseas, we are good enough to serve in other ways. And the fact that people actually decide that they want to engage in public service, whether it's sitting in Congress or whether it's serving on the fire department or the police department, should not be an issue. The fact is, stop trying to act as if only white men are the ones that are capable. Because right now, you're sitting at a table with 3 very capable black women.
I'm not. I'm just simply saying that as a matter of public policy in California, the main interest in the fire department lately has been in DEI programming and budget cuts, and now we have this massive fire.
Are we really, but Scott, are we really blaming the fire department? The people in the LA fire department.
No, I'm blaming the Democrats who run the state.
No, but the fire department right now, they are dealing with a historic fire, okay?
And they have terrible leadership.
That is caused by climate, by the fact that it is extremely dry in the state of California, and they are fighting it in tropical force winds in that state. So how is it anything to do with DEI? How is it anything to do with the fire department at all? They are doing their very best as far as I know.
The fire department is not doing a good job. No. What, is it the water that's the problem? Is the fire department is the problem? Is it a $17 million budget cut to an $800 million budget? I don't think that those are the issues that have caused this horrendous fire, the wildfires that are in California at this time. Well, and to bring DEI into this so early, I mean, how long have we been talking and you already came in with the DEI? Oh my God, you didn't even give us.
I mean, if I were you, I wouldn't want, if I were trying to defend California Democrats, I wouldn't want to hear me talk about it either. But the fact is, this has been mismanaged from a public policy perspective from top to bottom.
I don't think this is about California Democrats, but I do think, to the Congresswoman's point, it's very telling that whenever you're talking about a woman, the fire chief being a woman or the mayor being a woman, it's always DEI. Why does DEI not ever come into play when you're talking about a white man?
No, let's be clear, though. It's not. It's wonderful that the fire chief is a woman. I don't think if she is capable.
I didn't bring that up.
Yeah, if she is capable, I don't care what gender she is. I don't care who she loves. I don't care what pigment her skin is. If she's willing to go save somebody's life in somebody's house, good on her. The reason Scott brought up diversity is that just like your budget tells people what your priorities are, what you talk about in your bio, what you talk about on your website, what you emphasize in recruitment helps people understand what are your priorities in the organization.
They are putting their lives on the line.
And they're incredible.
As we speak.
And they're incredible.
Okay?
So and they should welcome
the political leaders aren't, the firefighters are.
I'm talking about the firefighters, okay? The ones who are recruited, the black ones, the brown ones, the women, they are all there on the line.
Let's just ground this in reality for a second. According to the US Forest Service, wildfire seasons in California are now almost 3 months longer than they were in the 1970s because of climate-driven heat waves and historic drought. The Berkeley lab published a study last year showing that California's vegetation moisture levels have hit record lows in the past decade, literally turning the landscape into kindling. And the National Weather Service explains that fire tornado level winds, like the ones happening right now, are the exact conditions that make wildfires uncontrollable, no matter how many trucks or firefighters you have on the ground. This isn't a personnel problem, it's a physics problem. The other thing the right leaves out, conveniently, is that California's fire agencies are already some of the most professionalized and highly trained in the country. Cal Fire is the second largest fire department in the United States, behind only New York City. These people are trained to fight wildfires at a scale most departments in the country never even see. And the Federal Wildfire Response Force, it's made up of crews from all backgrounds, veterans, tribal firefighters, seasonal workers, conservation corps members, you name it, who risk their lives every single year.
A kind of business note here, Congressman. President Trump has raised the issue of FEMA not having enough money, et cetera. This is your territory. Is the Congress going to fully fund what California needs in order to handle these fires, to recover from them if it's needed?
Absolutely, we should. This, of course, is a town that constantly disappoints people, but shame on all of us if we don't acknowledge that these disasters hit every state, and this is a really big one. People need to expect that their state, local, and federal government are going to be there, and we need to be.
I think that members always end up coming together when it comes to these disasters and doing the right thing by the people that are there. What really becomes the glue that puts it all together is the actual execution of the resources. And that's something that I think members of Congress need to do a much better job about, is making sure that the money gets on the ground to the people who need it the most in the manner and the speed at which
and just in December, we did together, Republicans and Democrats, refill much of that disaster fund. This is going to take a lot of money out of that.
So we are in, it's January 8th. President Trump is going to be inaugurated in just a few days.
About to say.
The incoming president, I hate to say it, but he has a history of threatening to not fund fire relief, specifically to California.
What did they do to Puerto Rico? I mean, we spent historic amounts of money on Puerto Rico.
Let me just play what President Trump said. This was just in October about actually fires in California.
We're going to take care of our farmers. We're going to take care of your water situation. And we'll force it down his throat. And we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is that I would feel more comfortable if we decided to send additional resources to FEMA now, before he is sworn into office. So my charge to the newly elected Speaker of the House is, let's get a bill on the floor. Let's come together, just like we came together when it dealt with Georgia and North Carolina and Florida. And let's make sure that California has the resources without delay, and make sure that there is no planned politics, because if you trust what he says, he has already made it clear that he likes to pick and choose who it is that he wants to support. And while the Congress may come together, I don't know what he's going to do with the veto pen. So I think that we should get it done while we still have a President Joe Biden.
Look, the Congress and the President, whether they do it now or 2 weeks from now, is going to obviously fund this and take care of this, and they need to. It's important. However, I do think this. Policy changes should come along with this relief money here, with whatever it takes to rebuild and to fix. We have to look at the root causes, whatever forest management problems there are, whatever water problems there are, whatever issues happen in the local governance. Rebuilding here is a good thing, and everybody should support it, but we ought to, as taxpayers, expect necessary policy changes at the federal, state, and local level so that it doesn't happen again.
Scott Jennings keeps trying to drag this conversation back to forest management, but that's basically arguing about how clean your kitchen is, while the house is literally on fire. You can thin forests, you can clear brush, you can do controlled burns, and California actually does more of that than any state in the country, but none of that stops 80 miles per hour fire winds, 100-degree heat waves, and the driest conditions in 1,200 years, which is what scientists at UCLA and the US, the Geological Survey, says California is dealing with. These aren't local governance problems, they're climate physics, which is why Jasmine's point about needing to lock in FEMA funding now makes so much sense. If Trump is signaling already out loud that he's willing to withhold fire aid as a political punishment, Congress has an obligation to firewall that funding before he gets the veto pen. Because when we're talking about wildfire victims losing their homes, when we're talking about seniors and kids breathing toxic smoke, when we're talking about firefighters risking their lives in hurricane force winds, policy changes don't help anyone at the moment. Money does. Resources do. Speed does. And when Scott tries to suggest that relief should be tied to reforms, that's not fiscal responsibility. That's a delay tactic. And delay is deadly in disasters. Jasmine and Abby are pointing to the one thing that actually matters here: saving lives now and dealing with politics later. The data, the history, and the science are all on their side.
Does that include climate change and addressing that?
Clearly, we need to be good stewards of the environment. And America, I think, has a better track record on this front than most people give us credit for. The reality is, in the last few years, we've reduced our carbon footprint by more than the next 15 carbon-reducing countries combined. I would say this. Clearly, President Trump speaks from the stump in a very different way than I do. It said that you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. We actually know how this guy's going to govern. He was president for 4 years. He didn't cut off funding. He didn't look at people whose homes were burned down and say, forget about it. You had a Biden sign in your yard, so we're just going to pass on by your home. Those things did happen in the last administration, probably in a narrow way. But I got to tell you, Donald Trump will be there to help out people in California. He was there 4 years ago. He'll be there now.
I'm just going to read one quote. We have several of them from his time in office, but just one as it relates to this. This is Kevin Carroll, a former Homeland Security official, told the New York Times and Politico and The Guardian, Trump absolutely didn't want to give aid to California or Puerto Rico purely for partisan politics. I hear what you're saying about the hurricanes, what happened in North Carolina and Florida. I do, though, think that there is a track record here of Trump, too, where his own aides, there are several others I didn't read, but his own aides say they had to convince him that there were votes there for him.
Well, I think
but
there are no votes in Puerto Rico.
I think what's going to be important is
Which
that
is why
we have...
they didn't.
But what did we do?
It.
I mean,
let me finish.
people make this
Excuse me,
allegation
Scott,
about Puerto Rico,
what I
but
think
it's like we funded
is going to be important is when the Senate is confirming those cabinet members.
That's what I was
speaking with them about what their policy ideas are and what they're going to do. Because when you're reading things like that, we recognize that it was the individuals who were there as experts, cabinet members, officials, who were able to convince the president to do certain things or convince him not to do other things. And we want to make sure that those great minds are still there for him to be able to provide that guidance and support, so that when Congress does give bills, good people like Jesse and others who are working on these things, to be able to put it in front of him to get him to sign it and to do the right thing.
I think the bigger issue, though, is the politicization of disaster aid. Dusty keeps saying Trump never denied aid based on politics, but we have Trump's own aides, internal emails, inspector general reports, and multiple investigations telling us something very different. Puerto Rico is the clearest example. In 2021, HUD's inspector general confirmed that Trump officials illegally delayed billions in hurricane recovery funds. The word used wasn't miscommunication, it was obstruction. And in California, during the 2019 wildfires, the Los Angeles Times reported that Trump pushed FEMA to withhold already approved aid until his advisors convinced him it was a terrible idea. Even Iowa, a red state, had to beg the administration for help after the 2020 derecho because the White House dragged its feet until the political pressure became embarrassing. This pattern is consistent. If the politics didn't benefit Trump, the assistance was delayed minimized or threatened. That's why it's not enough to just say, well, he eventually signed the paperwork. The story behind that paperwork shows a president who had to be talked out of punishing states he viewed as unfriendly. Olivia Troy, Trump's former Homeland Security advisor and a lifelong Republican, said publicly that Trump repeatedly questioned whether states that didn't vote for him should get federal help. That's not speculation. That came from someone in the room. And the truth is, disaster funding cannot depend on whether a president personally likes your governor or whether your state voted red or blue. That's not how the federal government is supposed to work. But Trump already showed a willingness to go down that road. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.